Today at the House of Hacks we have six tips. Count them, 6 tips for more accurate measuring. Tip number 1, make sure your pencils are sharp. So the first thing to making accurate measurements is to have a fine line. The best way to do that is to make sure you have a pencil sharpener around the workshop so you can always keep your pencils nice and sharp. Another tip related to the same topic is to use a mechanical pencil. Mechanical pencils, because the leads don't get whiter as they get worn down, are much more consistent in their marking, and with consistency you can get accuracy. And the final thing within this first tip is Sharpie makes retractable marker pens that are super fine tip. And this has really become my most favorite marking tool. It's got a fine tip to give you nice accurate measurements. It's also consistently the same width, kind of like a mechanical pencil, but the benefit it has is it's really dark ink, and so it shows up on just about everything that you're marking, and also being a Sharpie, it's indelible, so it won't rub off very easily. There's a few materials that'll rub off on, but for the most part it sticks pretty well, at least as long as you need to be making your cut. Tip number 2, use a knife. So along the same lines of getting a fine mark to get consistency, a knife gives you a really fine mark, because you can just mark your material and it's literally the size of a knife edge. Obviously this won't work on all materials, like metals usually it doesn't work too well on. It is suitable for wood, cardboard, things of that nature. Tip number 3, use a V mark. You can always use a straight line to make your mark, but if you use a V mark, it'll really help you hone in on exactly where it is that you need to make your cut, or where your measurement is really at. Tip number 4, only use one measuring device per project. So different tape rulers are going to have possibly just slightly different variations because of manufacturing. And so I like to try to use only a single tape measure for my whole project. That way, even if it's off maybe a little bit in terms of absolute measurement, it's at least consistently off the same for all my measurements. If you have 2 tape measures and you're mixing them up between them, particularly for the same cut, then there may be slight variations between them that are going to be reflected in your final product. Tip number 5, measure from 1 inch. So these tape measures have movable ends on them. And the reason for that is so that you can make an outside measurement and an inside measurement, and the idea is they move the same amount as the thickness of the little tab on the end. The problem is you have different manufacturing tolerances, and they may vary from one tape measure to the next. The other thing is over time they age and the holes may wear out, or the rivets may get looser. One way to get around this is always measure from the 1 inch mark and then subtract 1 inch from your final measurement. This will eliminate any variation due to damage at the end. This also works for tape measures like the fold-out kind of tape measures, where the ends may get damaged, or yardsticks. Any tape measure, the end may have propensity for getting damaged, and by measuring starting at the 1 inch mark, you can eliminate that altogether as an issue. Tip number 6, use the appropriate measuring device. The shorter the measurement, the less the trust. This is because any error that you have on a shorter measurement is going to be a greater percentage of the overall measurement than if you're measuring a longer distance. For example, just as an extreme case, if you have an 1/8 inch error in your measurement, over an inch, that's 1/8 of the whole measurement being off. Whereas an 1/8 of an inch over 16 feet is a much smaller percent of the total, and so it has less impact. So because of this, one of my favorite tools for short measurements has become a micrometer. This is a really cheap, inexpensive one. I think I paid $20 or $30 for it. An expensive one, by contrast, can be over $100. So this was a really inexpensive one, and it's become my go-to tool for anything that's under about 6 inches or so. I think it has an 8 inch capacity. No, it's a 6 inch capacity. So yeah, anything under 6 inches, I'm usually using this rather than a tape measure. A tape measure would work, but because I have this on hand, I just reach for it, and it has a much higher degree of accuracy. So those are the 6 tips. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for subscribing and being part of the community. If you're interested in making things with a mechanical or technical bent to them, out of woodworking, metalworking, electronics, photography, things of that nature, you might be interested in subscribing. So go check out the channel and subscribe if you're interested. Until next time, go make something. Perfection's not required, fun is.